another episode of Sideways Rain. I am your host, Chris, along with my co-host, JR. It is another lovely Friday. It is June 5th. Super excited to talk to you guys today. And we have another guest, another industry professional that we can't wait to dive into all things events, all things technology and events. But before we do that, I want to preface the call by saying this. Most of us get into the industry because we love events, right? We love the energy, the passion, the wow moment when the room becomes alive. But what we don't really realize is the passion and the love for events doesn't always mean it translates over to running a successful event. And those skills are often completely different, right, JR?
Yeah, running a business is completely different than running an event. And today's guest figured that out the hard way. Starting in 2005 with a passion, talent, and zero institutional support for the business side, he had to build everything from scratch, much like all of us. Now he runs a boutique firm, working with corporate events, nonprofits, and government agencies across DC, Dallas, and Los Angeles. And he's got some very direct things to say about what this industry gets wrong. So with that, here comes the rain. Great to have you on the show. Andrew is the founder of Andrew Roby Events, a boutique event management firm based in Washington, D.C., also operating in Dallas and Los Angeles. He's got 20 plus years in the industry, corporate conferences, nonprofit galas, government programs, weddings, and brand activations, Black-owned and veteran-owned business, intentionally boutique. He limits the clients per month to protect his quality. I love that. Active industry voice on LinkedIn with a sharp point of view. Events are vehicles, not vacations. Andrew, what the heck did we miss?
I have to first say, you all by far have done the best intro I've ever on a podcast. So I think that's the thing I would say I want to make sure was not missed, because that's the gotta leave it there.
Sweet. I'll take that. That's a feather in the cap.
Yeah. The resume makes it easy. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, for sure.
Shout out to you.
So, reminder of our format: we cover the storm, whatever challenge Andrew's facing. We'll cover the umbrella moment, how he sort of solved that storm, and then the clear skies, what happened afterwards. So, Andrew, let's get into it. We've got a lot to dig into around business and running events in business. But we always start with the storm. Take us back to where it all went sideways for you.
I think in the beginning, there was the word, and the word was, I think that in 2005, I got out of the military. I was transitioning out of being in the Army. And in the Army, I was learning so much. I was at the Old Guard, which is the most prestigious unit in the Army that does all ceremonies. So think of Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, land to rest fallen soldiers, doing foreign and national events with dignitaries, with presidents, etc. So I learned a lot of precision. I learned a lot of attention to detail in how to make sure things ran smoothly for those types of events. But when I got out of the military, and I tell, some of my friends this, and they are shocked by it, but I was almost homeless coming out of the military because I was not, I left the military in a sense of urgency on the tail end to protect my mental health. And I was not fully prepared to face what it was to be a regular citizen, a civilian. And when I started doing events, I had no background on how to run a successful event business. I knew how to do events based off of the level of work that I was doing when I was in the Army, but I did not know how to run a business. And so not only was I, struggling to find money and to have cash flow, but being on the cusp of being kicked out of my apartment and living on the streets, or even couch surfing, from my friends place to place, I had to figure out how to run my business so that way I could scale, that way I can get the right clients in our pipeline and everything else. And for 3 years, it was an absolute struggle because I was only using the technical things that I understood on how to run an event and thinking that the more events I did, the better my business would be and it will take care of itself on the back end. And that never happened. Like I had to do a reality check to say, I need some type of institutional education. So yeah.
Yeah, what did you think you were walking into? So you come out, I've got this passion for events. I want to do this thing. Like, how quickly did the business side smack you in the face?
I want to say probably in the first 3 or 4 months that I was running my business, I realized that I did not have the necessary training that I thought I had to be able to run this, and it had nothing to do with planning an event whatsoever, and everything to do with sales, marketing, scaling, partnerships, and all these other things on the back end, taxes, you know what I mean? Like I had no idea about, and it was a reality check. Like that was a huge aha moment for me.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
First and foremost, thank you for your service.
Absolutely.
I know that is nothing light, so thank you for that. You mentioned when you left the military, I wanted to take a step back. When you left, you said that what happened next was a little bit surprising for some of your friends and your family once you told them kind of what your life was like as a regular civilian, right? Well, that's a big career change. And on Sideways Rain, we talk to a lot of guests that go through these huge career changes that, of course, we get to the sunny skies where we know everything works out. But in that moment, when you made this career change, did you always know that events was the way that you were going to go? Was there anything else that you considered at that time? Like, how did you know that you were going to go all in on the events business? And what led you to that decision?
Honestly, I didn't know. I did not know what I wanted to do because when I was leaving the Army, the only thing on my mind was leaving the Army and protecting my mental health. And most people don't understand that when you're in the military, and I got in the military January of 2001.
Wow.
So September 2001 was 9/11. And so my career was spent on deployments. So I was taking deployment after deployment and navigating different units and doing different things that continuously chipped away at my mental health. And there was no, hey, let me go to this therapist while I'm on deployment, or hey, let me do this. Because I didn't have that. I didn't have that knowledge. I didn't have that wisdom, nor did people on my leadership team understand that, because their whole thought process was on carrying out the mission. And understand this is that when I got into the military, I was 19. And I joined the military, 6 months after high school. And I was fast tracking in the military, which means that I was being promoted faster than most people would be promoted in the military. So by the time I got deployed, I was responsible for about 30 people. I was 22 years old.
Oof.
On a deployment as a platoon sergeant, being responsible for 30 people, and not only 30 people, but making sure that their families, their children, their parents and everything were all okay, and that they understood that their person would be, returning home from deployments. And so that crept up to mental instability, if you will. And after my last deployment, which went from 9 months to 12 months to 15 months for that one deployment, I said, I got to do something about this. And so when I got out of the military, it wasn't, hey, I'm getting out to do this. It was, hey, I'm getting out to survive, to live, to make sure that I was navigating in a space that I could control. So when I got out, it wasn't, I knew that I wanted to do events. It took me time. I decided to pause and go to school. So I used the GI Bill because honestly, like I said, I didn't have any money. I got out and I just didn't have any source of revenue. And so the GI Bill provided me some of a stipend to go to school while also trying to pay bills, but it wasn't enough. We're talking about maybe a couple $100. And this was 2009. So this wasn't enough money to, pay for school, pay for books, and pay for all the other stuff, rent, car, and all that. So it wasn't until I just paused and sat back and said, well, what is it that I really want to do? And then I started thinking about all the events that I volunteered for while I was in the Army to say, well, let's try this out. So it wasn't even a surefire way. It was a hypothesis, if you will. To test and see if it was something that I would actually be good at. So that's really how it started. Yeah.
Well, kudos to you for making the jump. I think a lot of people aren't brave enough to get out of their comfort zone and just do that. And you knew what you had to do for you, and you did it. So kudos. 22 years old, you're still a boy running a group of 30 people. What did you take away from that experience? Are you applying any of that in 2005 as you went out on your own and managing teams outside of the service?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, even with my team now, is that I don't care what happens through an event. I don't care what happens through a client or anything like that. I will always protect my team. Yeah. I will always make sure that they're ready. I will always check in on them. I will always make sure that they understand that I love and I care for them. And not just them, but their family and the goals that they have, the aspirations that they have for future endeavors. That's the one thing that I feel like I was neglected with my leadership in the military, or at least on the tail end. It wasn't my entire career in the military, but on the tail end, that's what I felt I was neglecting, receiving from my leadership. And that's the one thing that I've carried on. It's been 21 years, and I've carried that every single year to my team. We go out, we have dinners, we go out and we celebrate birthdays. Like, we do all these things together. And that's the level of teamwork that I think is really important, because it goes beyond, hey, I'm your employer. Hey, I'm giving you, your paycheck every other Friday, into we're friends. Like, we genuinely are friends. We have a group chat that we talk about everything outside of work. And that's what I really love about it and what I carry from that.
It's amazing. Yeah. Be giving them purpose beyond just the paycheck. I love that.
Yeah. I know that goes a long way as well, because I've experienced being in my 10 years in the industry. I've experienced both sides, where you have the employer that's similar to you, Andrew, where they're very charismatic. They want to know about you as a person. They want to know what you're trying to achieve in life. But then I've also worked on the flip side, where it's like, you're just an employee that is on this project to get tasks done, to meet deadlines. And I don't really care about your work-life balance or your well-being. I just want to make sure you're showing up to calls on time, you're getting these deadlines met, and everything is running smoothly. What have you seen from your employees in terms of their response to the charismatic, the wanting to know about them, versus the opposite? What are some of those things that come up that you notice just in hearing the feedback from some of your employees?
I love that. A few things. One is trust. The more that I get to know them, the more that they trust what it is, my level of leadership, and what I am requiring of them. So it's very rare that I can't even remember the last time we got in an argument or we had a disagreement, because they understand that the process that I have is the process for what needs to be done, and they trust me on that. But in reverse, I also trust them and their decision-making skills as well, because if they say, hey, this is the area I'm working in and this is what I need to get done for that particular area, I don't micromanage them. I don't second guess them or anything. I support. I lead in 100% to make sure that they have everything that they need to be successful. And that's something that I say all the time to them. The other thing is the level of teamwork. We work together so cohesively that it just feels like they are a clone of me and I am a clone of them when we work, for various agencies and our clients. And there's oftentimes that they do these things on their own. I'm not a part of every event. And so I think that having a team that can effectively do that without me being present all the time, I feel is a successful team. And so those things I cherish so much with them, because I've been in situations where I've worked as a freelancer for other teams, and I'm like, oh, what? It's like, what is going on? And why are you saying one thing and then you come back and you change and then you don't empower this person? It's chaotic and frustrating. Oh, yeah.
Man, there's so many things. Like,
more.
we could have like 3 different podcasts: work-life balance, how to hire well, how to inspire, how to get people motivated in an industry where you can be working 18 hours a day. Man, but I'm going to reel us back in 2005. Every program in our industry, certifications, hospitality programs, event design courses, teaches the craft. There's not a lot in our industry that teaches the business side. What was missing on day one, and what's still missing today in our industry around that?
Yeah, and so it was crazy because I wanted to understand the foundational skills that I needed to work on my business and how to be a great business owner. And the first thing I did was, okay, let me look for an event planning curriculum, an event planning course, something that's in, college level that will help me understand how to work as a business owner. But every time I looked at a program, every program was telling me how to run an event, how to deal with vendors, how to, things that are still important, but have absolutely nothing to do with me scaling my business, being successful in my business, and understanding how to pay employees, how to do my taxes, and the more technical foundational things that I need. And so I ended up getting a master's in business because that was the most legitimate or the most resourceful degree that I felt that I needed in order to be very smart and efficient in running my business. And even today, I still look at college programs and I see the curriculum and I'm like, none of these things are really going to help a person understand how to properly deal with professional branding and personal branding and how to market their business effectively, how to negotiate and how to sell and how to, hire employees and to train employees and all this. It treats you as if you're your own person that's doing all of these things, but living within a event production standpoint versus a business owner mindset. So that is what I feel like we're still lacking today.
Yeah, so that kind of brings us to your umbrella moment. You changed your college major from marketing to business management because it was the closest solution available. What made you willing to do that when most people would just try to figure out that side on the job?
Because I did not want to have thousands of dollars. And thankfully, I had my Montgomery GI Bill, but that didn't pay for everything. So I did not want to have thousands of dollars of college debt for a degree that I was not using. I am from the inner city of Miami. My parents lived paycheck to paycheck. When I got out of the military, I wasn't even living paycheck to paycheck. And so the last thing I needed was more debt based off of something that I was never going to use. And so I said to myself, before I get out of this first year, out of my freshman year of college, I need to make sure that whatever I'm doing as far as a degree is going to be something that I'm going to use and it's going to carry me throughout my entire career. Marketing was a great undergrad course of action, but it was not something that I feel like I could use this day to run my business effectively.
That's amazing. And one thing I want to call out just for the listeners is, Andrew, you're the perfect example of not being afraid to pivot. And we talk about that a lot on this show. Being able to pivot and take that next step and change and deal with what comes with that, it's not easy. And your story is living proof of that. But
pivot with the plan, though, Chris. Pivot with the plan. Because I pivoted too many times in college, and man, that was the wrong call too.
And that is very true because you can't just always change and expect just the change is going to bring success. You do have to have a work ethic and plan for it. So that's a really good call out. So Andrew, going back to you, once you made this change and you went from marketing to business, in your time in business, was there a course, was there a professor, was there a concept that completely changed the game for you, that gave you that aha moment where everything sort of clicked? Was there a moment like that once you made that switch?
I cannot remember my professor's name, but my curriculum for getting a master's in business was really weird because everything dealt with money. Like so much dealt with money. And I laugh at it because today I'm always talking about money and how budgets matter and allocations and funding and sponsorships. But it was actually taking his course for an entire year on in math and understanding how important numbers were for my business and how to make the math. And so he, I think, was that pivotal moment. And not to say that, that has to do with the entire, my entire career, but I think at that point, understanding how critical I needed that course and how I would have never got that understanding if I stayed in a marketing degree was really a great pivotal moment for me, because it then propelled how I saw everything else. And with me is, once I get hooked into something, I'm then going to apply that to every single thing else. And so it just literally trickled over to all the other programs that I was a part of to help get my degree. And I was like, wow. And it just, like, I think about him to this day. I wish I knew his name, but what he taught me was just foundational and paramount. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a good call out. I mean, just the numbers on being profitable as a 5-person company versus a 20-person company is incredibly different. And I think a lot of people learn the hard way that as you get bigger, operational margin actually compresses, and at some point you might be losing money. I struck a nerve there. That stuff happens. But yeah, that's a good call out. There's a lot of math involved, and yeah, I'm involved in numbers way more than I thought I ever would be. I'm also involved in humans a lot more than I thought I would be too, but that's a different story. To that end, there's a phrase people talk about a lot in business, especially business owners. It's working on the business versus in the business. And our default is like, I might come in at 8 a.m. and say like, hey, I'm going to work on the business today. And then by noon, I am knee deep in it. How do you stay focused on the business without getting dirty, and or how do you find the time to separate the two?
So during the pandemic, I did something that people not only laughed at me about and told me it wasn't going to work. Some of my clients had pushback on, but I stuck with it. And that was scheduling. So we stopped working 5 days a week. Client facing. We closed on Mondays. We stopped doing work at 2 p.m. Thursdays, or Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And people were like, wait, what? How are you able to run a business that way? Well, if I am always doing client meetings the entire day, when do I have time to do production? When do I have time to make sure that I can look at projecting future goals and all that kind of stuff? So Monday was our admin day. Monday was the day for us to sit down, talk, strategize, understand proposals, understand projections and everything like that. But then Tuesday through Friday, after 2:00, that was our day to work on the business. If you can't get us between 9:00 in the morning and 1:59 that afternoon, it just wasn't going to get done that day. We would do it for the next day. But as we went along, our clients respected us for that, because they understood that, one, your contract with us is not the only contract that we need to sustain our business. There's a lot of other things that we have to do as businesses to make sure that we are successful. And the more I sat there and just set up, I sat during the pandemic, I remember so vividly me sitting at my dinner table for 16 hours, 12, 16 hours, just sitting here working in my business, answering emails, being on LinkedIn, being on social media, all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, well, why am I not seeing progress? Because I was doing everything but what I needed to do. I was doing busy work and never really working on the business.
Yeah, if you have multiple priorities, you have no priorities, right? Are you big on time blocking?
Yes. Yeah. And my schedule, if you would see my schedule for today, I am huge on time blocking.
Yes.
Huge.
I did the same thing this morning. I was like, I filled out my whole schedule. Here's what I'm going to work on when. It helps a ton. If y'all aren't time blocking and you don't know how, hit me up or hit Andrew up. It helps a ton. It lets you focus on that one thing at a time.
Oof. Yeah. A good.
Yeah, Andrew.
And I think that too, because it helps to make sure, like, I use Copilot for Microsoft, and it helps to make sure that I stick to what is I'm time blocking. So yeah.
Nice.
That's amazing. I'm curious, are you still working on that same schedule today since
Yeah.
COVID?
Oh yeah.
That's
We're
amazing.
not. I refuse to change this unless something drastic happens that requires me to change that schedule. I'm not changing it. I'm not.
I'm going to steal that
That's
idea.
amazing.
It is so helpful. It's so helpful. Oh my goodness. I wish I thought about that sooner.
We went to a 4-day work week here at 180. We're closed on Fridays. I'm here on Fridays, but that allows me on Fridays to work on the business. It's just a whole day where there's not a lot of noise here. But I do love the idea of making time for it every day. And I love the idea of that after 2 p.m., right? Like you're not going to accomplish a ton or finish something in that time anyway. So let's just push it to 9 a.m. tomorrow. It's great. Love it.
Yep.
I'll jump in again. I could ask questions all day. You said in some of the pre-work, you were losing money and you didn't know how to sell your value or build a team. What does not knowing how to sell your value actually look like in practice, and what were you doing wrong?
So I was following everybody else. I was doing everything that everybody else was doing, and that was selling logistics. I was selling, hey, I can find a venue. Hey, I could create a runner show, which my clients still to this day don't even know what that is. And I was selling everything. I could do vendor management. I can design a set. I can do stage management and all that. I was selling that, but none of those things spoke to why the client actually needed me. It just felt like a checklist of things that every other person who did exactly what I did was also pitching, was also selling. And I got to the point that I was like, well, why am I losing these bids? Why am I losing these contracts? And it all boiled down to, and I started asking our clients who said no to us, what was the differentiation between my services and someone else's? And it had everything to do with value proposition and how I was unable to demonstrate how I was going to help that client meet their KPIs. How was I going to help that client make sure that their event was successful? Because to them, success had nothing to do with logistics and everything to do with how I was going to create transformation, not only for them in their workflow, but also their sponsors and the attendees. So that way it was easier for those people to come back a year after a year. And so that is why I decided to stop, and even now when I teach my CEO planner cohort, I ask them, hey, what is your value proposition? And every single time it's, hey, I can find a venue. Hey, I can work with vendors. And it's still, I'm 21 years in and it's still something that people continue to use. And I was like, we need to reframe that. We need to reshape how you sell yourself, how you sell the value that you bring to the table. So that is a huge change for me.
That's awesome. What would you say changed in your day to day once you got that feedback, came up with a plan to prioritize and kind of reevaluate how you show and bring value? What are some things that changed in your day to day operations?
Yeah. I think everything changed, honestly. So when I'm thinking in the value mindset, I think about I had to change my proposals and how what was in that proposal was written and what I was trying to communicate. And again, I look at my old contracts and on page 4, those contracts just listed all the logistics. And I was like, oh, this is so bad. So I went in and I changed all of our documents. I changed all of our SOPs, not only for our admin side, but also our team side and how they are able to speak to certain things when they're actually doing sales calls and discovery calls. But I also changed how we did marketing. I changed what we were doing on social media and stopped using the messaging of hey, I'm doing this logistically, but also I stopped using messaging that was attracting more event planners to like our posts. And nothing wrong with attracting, my community of colleagues, but they aren't hiring me. And so I needed to make sure I changed the messaging so that way it spoke to our clients, or at least had some inclination that my clients understood that I was selling value. I was selling transformation that they needed to solve the problems that they were having. So it really was an overhaul. Like I said, from the time I was in college and I learned, money and the numbers, I go all in for things when I see it needs to be changed. I really do.
Yeah, on social media, you see a lot of stuff where people are actually selling to themselves almost, their own avatar.
Yeah.
and they need to be speaking to their clients more. And yeah, it's here, good to hear. It's refreshing to hear your take on that. And it's a good reminder actually for me about what we're doing on social as well. Let's get to clear skies. Go ahead.
It's a trap though, because social media, we feel like, oh, this person, like there's a number of people on LinkedIn that I absolutely admire, but they are selling to our industry.
Yeah.
They're not selling to the clients I have as an event professional, and they get hundreds of comments, hundreds of reactions on their posts from event planners and AV crews and all that kind of stuff. And then what I see is I see the event planners and the other, event professionals in turn posting like the person that they have just commented on. And all that does is attract more people like that person has attracted on their page, not understanding that that person is attracting you. You are their client, and not other event planners are my client. So I have to acknowledge the greatness in their posts, but not try to replicate it. And I think a lot of people do that.
Absolutely.
Yes. Could not agree more.
I'm going to bounce to clear skies. And I just want to remind the audience, this is clear skies. There are microbursts every day in this business, right? So like we're getting through a big challenge, but we're going to hit challenges all the time. We're moving the goalposts. We're always going to be up against something. But you said you wouldn't change the path that you were on, even though it was hard. What does the back end toolkit look like? If you were going to talk to somebody that says, I want to start an event business today, what are the business fundamentals they should have on day one?
Yeah, I would not change it, because then I wouldn't be able to speak towards my lived experience. But I think that the tools that you need to have for day one, if I'm speaking to an event planner, is understanding leadership and understanding how to manage your business effectively, but also community, having the proper network. Because sadly, when I was, starting out, I didn't know who to ask for help. I didn't have a group of other seasoned event planners that I can run into and say, hey, can I bounce this off? Can I even pay for your advice on this? Because in that season, it was more competitive than it is now. I think the pandemic has helped shift how we understand and accept community over competition. And so I would definitely say develop that sense of community, understand who your people are, but also get the training. Never stop learning, whether it's going to a conference and thinking outside of the type of training that you're getting. I do interior design work, and it's weird how that correlates to event design and event production, but it works so well. So thinking outside of the normal parameters of our industry and understanding how so many other things contribute to what we do as a business owner. And lastly, I would probably say, always stay curious. Always try to understand what other people are doing. Always ask why, and have that deep understanding of what you do best and understand how to exploit that. So being curious and asking yourself why you do what you do is really going to be important.
That's a lot of strategy. Tell me about operation versus strategy. They're not the same. How do you differentiate the two, and which one's more important?
Which one's more important?
I know that's a loaded question.
That's a loaded question. Woo, mercy. So I'll say this. To me, operation is everything I do to run my business or to run an event. Strategy, or partially to run an event. Strategy is more along the lines of how do I go about maybe selling, or how do I go about pitching, or how do I go about fixing particular problems, and the way to do that. So I'm not sure I think that both of them work hand in hand. I don't think that there is one that is better than the other. I think that we need both in order to be successful. So I don't know if I have a clear answer for that one. That was a really good question.
That's a tough one.
I gotta think about that.
One of the challenges we have is, we obviously have operations in the business and people running it. And we have strategy in the business and people running it. Those two people bump heads a lot, right?
Yeah.
So how do you bring those people together to understand the bigger picture, I guess, is a more appropriate question.
Yeah, because the bigger picture, I feel like is the strategy.
Yeah.
I feel like that is thinking, long term and understanding where your company is going. Of course, the operation is that day to day. But sometimes it is hard to work day to day and also work on the business for what strategy is saying this is what's happening in the future. Example, if I'm a tech company, if I'm doing AV, I have my AV equipment and I understand my team understands what that equipment is, but technology evolves. And if I know that in 5 years' time, there's going to be this new technology that's coming out, I have to train my team in order to get prepared for that particular technology, but they're still operating day to day. So I have to find that balance to make sure that they're still doing what they need to do from an operational standpoint, but also strategically, we're learning, we're adapting, we're growing so that way we can be more competitive, as we pass year after year. So it's hard, and I can see how those two people can bump heads. But I think that ultimately, if we understand what that end goal is, I think it is more palatable to say, okay, I get it, I don't like it, but let's go with it.
Yeah, a lot of times operations is the vehicle, but the strategy can be the gas, right? So like if people don't understand the bigger picture, change management is impossible. You have to give them the reason for them to do it, or honestly, they might not do it at all.
Yeah, yeah, and they resent it, and they push back, and then you have change turnover.
Yeah.
They go in some, yeah.
Earlier, Andrew, you mentioned that your perceived value went through kind of like a restructuring and you had this aha moment about pitching your value differently, right? What does pricing that value actually mean in the industry? And what changed when you had that moment of shifting your value prop to your clients and your customers?
That's a good question. So what was this? Maybe 2, 3 years ago, I started a online coaching course. I don't do it anymore, but I started an online coaching course. And the one thing that I saw as the biggest problem with the people I was coaching was they did not know their numbers. They did not know how much money they needed to make every single year in order to be profitable. And not only that, they did not know what was in the numbers. So if I said to myself, hey, what are my expenses? They couldn't tell me my expenses were my employees, my insurance, whatever the rent was, and all these things. And so I said, well, that's part of your value as well. They didn't even include education. They didn't include the conferences, the trainings, the webinars, the workshops, all those things that made them great. They weren't using that as part of their value. So then they were not effectively pricing. They were underpricing because they weren't truly evaluating everything that it took for them to be who they are. And I think a lot of times that when you're so focused on running that event versus running your business, you don't see all the stuff on the business back end that also needs to be included into your price. And because you're barely, under the red and you're still in the black, but you're barely from between red and black, you aren't making enough money. You aren't able to hire that employee. You're only able to hire freelance and 1099s, or you're only able to work in a particular market because if you expand, that's going to cost more money. You find yourself in the red. So I feel like a lot of times people are not selling what makes them great. And what makes them great has nothing to do with the logistics. It has everything to do with what you have done from the time you started in this industry to what you're doing right now. And that's the stuff that we need to be selling, because those are actionable items. Those are things that we found that we can repeat time and time again to have a successful event. And if you're selling that, then that is the outcome that you want to sell. And our clients are looking for outcomes. They want to make sure that their events are done professionally and successfully, and use those as case studies. And that's what we bring to the table. I don't sell anything but what we've done for other clients, because if I can say this is what we did for other client, that means more than likely I can possibly do the same for you. And those outcomes is what drives our price.
Yeah, make sure your clients or potential clients understand your value first. Otherwise, you'll just always be in a race to the bottom on pricing, and you're never going to win.
Yep.
Absolutely.
If you understand your value and you communicate it, you could be 2 times your closest competitor and still win.
Yep.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
And what I've learned is it takes the guesswork out of everything for both sides, because once you understand your numbers, once you understand what it takes to have that level of expectation, that level of branding that is speaking to your success with clients, everything becomes expected, because that's the value and that's the type of brand that you're providing. That's not going to change if you know your expenses and you're able to cover those. And then that's also going to give you crystal clarity on your value that you're bringing to the table. Clients aren't going to question you on your pricing or why this rate is the rate. You know what you're getting in terms of the brand and the value and the experience. So shout out to you for that. That's knowledge.
Thank you.
Chris, let's jump into a lightning round. Let's have a little fun, Andrew. Some of these will be serious, some of them will be silly. Just looking for quick one-sentence answers to these. I'll start. Is it ever okay to take your shoes off on an airplane?
Only in first class. Because they give you slippers.
Fair. Yeah.
That is funny. JR starting off random. I love it. My question is going to be a little bit more generic. So you've been in the industry 20 plus years. You've done a lot of events. What's the most unique experience that you've had running a particular event? It could be anything that comes to mind.
I don't have any unique experiences, honestly.
No?
Maybe that's a bad thing. I don't know. I'm
sure
into
you do.
unique experiences, but I don't know. I'll come back to that one if I can.
Okay.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
What's your most controversial industry take?
I feel like our industry conferences are overrated.
Word.
I don't think that's controversial at all. Somebody has to say it. But no, I kind of agree with you on that. I do feel like a lot of our conferences are just kind of, hey, show up, get everybody in the room and say you were there and post about it on LinkedIn. And the needle isn't really moving. It's like a in-life LinkedIn post.
And I'll add to that. I had a very controversial LinkedIn post, I think like a week or two ago, where I said, I am tired of our industry events, our industry conferences not paying their speakers and expecting their speakers to market their conferences and do all these other things, pay for their tickets to fly there in their hotel, and you don't pay them to actually speak on stage and deliver actual content. So that would be my other one. Yeah.
Yes. If you see the value, pay for the value. Thank you.
Yeah.
I know we all have routines that we kind of try to stick to day to day, whether it be work related, whether it be life related. What is one thing that you do daily or every other day or weekly that is just invaluable to your success as a human, as a business owner, as a friend? What is that one thing that you have to do that keeps you going?
Yeah, every single day that I get up, the first thing I do is center myself. That is a series of things. I love tea. I'm always drinking tea, so that's one thing I do. But I also do devotionals. I pray, I meditate, and just center and ground myself to make sure that I am prepared for that day. And the other thing that I do is I learn how to disconnect from my phone. I have a do not disturb that sets itself every day at 9 p.m. and it doesn't turn off until 8:30 a.m. the next day, because I need those moments to just be with me and my friends and my family, because that really is more an intentional thing to make sure that I start and end my day in a meaningful way. So yeah.
That's amazing. JR, I have a piggyback to that before we move on to the next question.
Yeah.
I know you talked a lot about mental health, and all of those things that you just mentioned are huge avenues to making sure your mental health is stable and in a good place. What are some, what's a piece of advice you would give now that you've kind of been through this journey, and I'm sure it's ongoing in dealing with mental health? What are some things that you would share with the listeners as gems that you figured out along the way to help get you to a state where you can manage your mental health?
Yeah. The first thing is that everybody needs therapy. I don't care how great you feel like your life is. you need to unpack some things. Maybe there's this book that I forgot the name of the author, but the book is called The Body Keeps the Score. And I recommend that book to everybody to read how certain things that happen in life can be traumatizing and traumatic to you, and how it actually reshapes how your brain is and the shape and chemistry of your brain. I really recommend that. But I also would say to people is to get offline and to engage in person. Stop living so many hours day to day on social media and consuming things that in most cases are not real. It's not factual. It's not what it's meant to be. Social media is a means to allow us to connect and build community in person. It is a tool to get us to be in person, but so many people use it as a tool to stay online. And the last thing I would say is read fiction. It is okay to read fiction books and to understand how the galaxies far, far away are doing things with aliens and all that kind of stuff, because your mind is meant to explore. And the more you're able to have a balance between reality and fiction, the better your mind is to adapt and to live day to day. So those are the things I would say.
Mic drop. That's social media content right there. For all you young people, that means touch grass, right?
Yeah,
I was
for sure.
yesterday in my backyard. It was amazing.
For sure.
Andrew, we like to close with one question for the folks starting out in the industry, or the folks starting out in any industry. What's one piece of advice you'd give to someone early in their career that wants to be successful?
Stay curious. Stay curious. Stay bold. Speak your mind. Because you being the outlier, you being the person that is different from the pack, is what your community needs, what your industry needs. Don't be afraid of being different.
Amazing.
Love it.
Andrew, it was great to have you on the show. Just so y'all know, Andrew was dropping knowledge before we even hit record today. So I hope y'all took something away from this. I know I did. I'm going to be done working in the business at 2 p.m. today. Make sure I'm working on it. But Andrew, really appreciate your time today.
Thank you for having me.
Likewise. Before we let you go, you have any upcoming events, webinars, education courses, anything you want to share with the people?
The one thing that I am big on right now that I launched about 2 months ago is my hotel audit. Is a guest experience audit that is specific to hotels and how guests navigate through the space, but also from an event planner's lens, how events are functioning in a hotel. So it's something that it is from a 30-point to a 50-point audit, with a 90-day revisit that I bring back to hotels, that has been really groundbreaking for them to see what we see and how to change policy so that way they are sustaining the relationship with event planners and bringing business back to their hotels versus giving another hotel the business that they failed to sustain. So yeah.
That's amazing. I'd love to learn more.
Yeah.
We'll have to talk about that offline.
Okay.
Andrew Roby, everyone.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, Andrew. Appreciate it.
Chris, so many takeaways today. I got a lot to do. I got to go outside and touch grass. I got to stop at 2 today. I gotta read more fiction. I'm reading too many business books these days.
Yeah, he was speaking at you.
Yeah,
You felt that.
he saw right through me. Andrew, great episode. You can find Andrew and his team at andrewrobyevents.com. I'll put the link in the description. We'll also look up that book, put it there too. Follow Andrew on LinkedIn. He's got some great stuff I've been following for a while. If it hits home, send it to someone in your network, make that connection too. We're all about building network here so we can not only connect on social, but in person later.
Likewise. That's all we got for you guys today. Until next time.
Left the barracks with a duffel and a gap in his chest. 22 years old, responsible for the rest. Deployment stacked up, mission after mission. Nobody stopped to ask how he was living. Stepped into civilian life without a map. Passion for the work, but the business hit him back. No cash flow, no clients, nearly lost the door. 3 years of hard lessons just to find what for. They taught him how to run an event. Nobody taught him how to run the rent. So we sat down, did the math, changed the plan, built it different with his own two hands. Stay curious, stay bold. Storm don't care how brave or how cold, but the ones who make it through are the ones who pivot with a plan. Know their value, know their numbers, know who they are. Stay curious, stay bold. Mondays for the vision, 2 o'clock the door is closed. Protecting his time so the quality shows. So the logistics once learned, that wasn't it. Started selling transformation, that was the hit. They asked why the rate is what it is. He said, add up every year, that made you this.